This is the story of Truman Burbank, who is an insurance agent. He has been living on Sea Heaven Island for the last 30 years, which is not actually an island but a very grand TV set from which Truman's life is shown on TV 24/7. But Truman knew nothing of this. Here, except Truman, all the people who live with him or are visible to him are the cast and crew members of this TV show. At the beginning of the movie, Truman leaves for his office and is greeted by his neighbors as usual. Truman also greeted them well and said, "I bid you good afternoon, good evening and good night from now, just in case I don't see you again," and after this he starts leaving for the office. But then suddenly a spotlight came from the sky and fell on the street, and Truman starts wondering where it came from. But before he could think about it, he was told over the radio that something had fallen from the plane above. Truman thinks that it must be a mishappening. After that, he left for the office. After arriving at the office, Truman secretly calls the Fiji directory to try to find out about Lauren and Sylvia Garland. But he doesn't get any information. All the actors in the office behave with Truman according to their script. After a while, Truman's boss asked him to meet with a client in Wales Island to finalize an insurance deal. Truman initially did not want to go, but later he agreed to go because of his boss's insistence. But Truman turned back from midway because he is very afraid of water. In fact, there is no such thing as Wales Island. This thing is only done to keep Truman's fear of water, because they don't want Truman to somehow cross the water and get off the movie set. Then one night, while playing golf, Truman tells his friend Merlin that he is going to quit his job soon and head out to Fiji. But his friend Merlin advises him to stay in Sea Haven. Truman then sits alone by the sea and remembers how he and his father were on a boat and his father drowned right in front of him and died. Nothing actually happened like this in real, it was a trick to instill a fear of water in Truman's mind. After this, suddenly water starts falling from the sky only on Truman, and he is quite surprised to see how this is happening. Truman changes his position and water also started falling from that position, and then it starts raining from the whole sky. Truman goes home soaking wet and tells his wife Meryl, "We need to get out of Sea Haven and travel around the world. I have never been out of Sea Haven." Then Meryl says, "We don't have any savings." Then she gives him a kiss and asks him to come to the room. Next day, while going to work, Truman sees his dad on the way. Truman recognized his father by sight, but then two men came and took him to the bus. Then there is a huge crowd towards the bus and Truman can't get on the bus. After this, Truman again returned to the home and tells the whole story to his mother Angela. Angela says, "It must be an error of your mind." But Truman cannot accept this at all. After then, Truman finds an old red sweater in the basement of his house and starts remembering his old memories of the first time he saw Sylvia. One day when Truman was at the bar with his friend Marlon, he noticed Lauren sitting in front of him. Truman wanted to go and talk to her, but that's when Christoph sent Meryl there and she made excuses to stop Truman from going to Lauren. Then one day while studying in the library, Truman meets Lauren again. Truman wants to talk to her, but she said she is not allowed to talk to him. Lauren already liked Truman, so she broke the show's rules that day and went out of character to talk to Truman. After this, both of them run away to a beach and kiss each other. Before Lauren can tell Truman about the reality of the show, a man arrived there with a car. He was pretending as he is Lauren's father and starts to take away her from there. While leaving, Lauren tells Truman that her real name is not Lauren but Sylvia, and he can meet her in Fiji. Since then, her red sweater has remained with Truman. Sylvia was removed from the show because she tried to tell Truman about the reality of the show. Shortly after Sylvia left, Truman married Meryl. The next day, while going to office, Truman hears the sound of his walkie-talkie in his car's radio, in which the details of Truman's current location are being shared, although it was a technical error. But seeing this, Truman becomes very shocked. He wondered why his location is being shared on the radio. He starts observing the things around him. He suddenly sees a man who notices him. He was trying to run after the man, but suddenly he collides with a bus and immediately another vehicle also comes here. But it stops suddenly after coming near Truman. Everything started to seem very strange to Truman, because everything in his life is going according to a set pattern and timing that Truman himself now understands. He then meets his friend Merlin and tells him all these things. But Merlin tells him, "Nothing like that. You must have misunderstood things." When Truman was looking at old photos at night, he became suspicious of his wife Meryl. because while kissing Truman, she kept her finger crossed, which means that she is really not interested in Truman. Meryl is a doctor by profession. The next day, Truman follows her and reaches the hospital. When Truman arrived at the hospital, by then Meryl entered into the operation theater. Truman wants to get in there, but there everyone tries to stop him. Truman later told one of Meryl's colleagues that he is leaving for Fiji today and would call Meryl after reaching there. Truman then wants to book a flight to Fiji through a travel agency. But here his lots of time is wasted and is told that there are no flights available for the next 1 month. Truman then wants to take a bus to Chicago, but as soon as he gets on the bus, everyone comes down and the bus stops there, due to which Truman is forced to return home. Later that evening, when Meryl returned home, Truman asked her to get into his car. Truman then leaves for the city of New Orleans with Meryl. But many cars suddenly comes in front of them on the way, due to which there was a traffic jam created and Truman was unable to move forward. But Truman now understands this game. After a while he goes towards that road again, but this time there is no traffic. Then he realizes that these are done to stop him. But even this time Truman could not go very far because there was a gas leak on a platform in front, due to which no one was allowed to go there. A policeman was telling Truman the details of the incident, but when leaving he mistakenly called Truman by his name. Hearing this, Truman realizes that something is wrong there. How does the policeman know my name? Then Truman runs after the policeman to know the truth, and the other policeman also runs after Truman. He tried hard to run away, but they finally catch him and Truman is forced to return home. Truman becomes very disappointed when he returned home. He wants to go out of the island at least once to see the world. When Truman was thinking these, he sees Meryl and becomes suspicious of Meryl as well. Truman grabs Meryl and puts a knife to her throat and asks her what's really going on here. That's when Merlin comes there and saves Meryl. Meryl hugs Merlin and says this is very unprofessional and she can't act like this anymore. By saying this, Meryl broke the rules of the show, and because of that Meryl is also removed from the show. Then Truman sits with Marlin till late night and became very upset with his life. Merlin tells Truman that he is his best friend and he would never lie to him. The show's creator Christoph told Marlin that, "You have to go and tell Truman that the man he saw that day was really his father." So Merlin goes and tells Truman that. Merlin then takes Truman to the bridge and shows him a man. Truman approaches and sees that the man is really his father. Truman then hugs him and starts crying. Christoph shows that scene to the audience from different camera angles. It becomes the prime moment of the show and the audience gets more connected with Truman by watching this scene. It also increases the TRP of the show a lot. Then a news channel takes interview of Christoph. There they asked Christoph how he captures Truman's every activity. Christoph says he had to put 5,000 cameras on his set to do this. He also said that in between the show he also keep doing advertisements of various products which earns him good income. Sylvia was also watching Christoph's interview and she called that news channel to tell Christoph that he is ruining Truman's life by keeping him far from the truth. But today or tomorrow Truman will know the truth and surely come out. After that, Truman is seen living life as before. One day the team of the show finds him sleeping till very late of the day. Christoph finds this unusual and immediately sends Merlin to check on Truman's room. When Marilyn goes to Truman's room and removes the bed sheet, he finds there a teddy under the bed sheet. Truman wasn't there. Merlin searches the entire house and finds Truman nowhere. Then he finds a large hole in the ceiling of the storeroom through which Truman escaped. Merlin tells on the live show that Truman has ran away. Christoph immediately stops the show, and seeing this the audience becomes very upset. Because for the first time in the last 30 years the show has been stopped. After this, every actor of the show begins to search for Truman according to Christoph's instructions. But no one can find him. Whenever Christoph checks the sea footage, he sees Truman leaving with a boat. Then the live show resumed and the audience starts watching Truman again. Truman continues to head in the direction of the show's exit. Christoph tried very hard to stop him. He makes big waves in the ocean that scared Truman. But Truman didn't give up. He falls out of the boat but bravely climbs back into the boat. Christoph then increased the wind speed, which makes a storm on the water. This caused Truman to fall into the water once more, but he managed to survive somehow. His courage is still high and he is not ready to come back. Christoph becomes very worried when he sees this, because if he tries to stop Truman anymore, he might die on the live show. Truman's boat stopped in front of a wall. Truman does not believe that it is a wall because from the distance it was like an open sky and only water was visible from the distance. Truman feels very bad, but still he doesn't lose courage. Then he started climbing up the stairs of the wall. After reaching the bottom of the stairs, Truman saw the show's exit gate. Truman was about to leave, but then Christoph tried to stop him by saying, "Your whole life you were in front of me. No one knows you better than me. You were an unwanted baby whom I adopted. You started walking in front of me, your teeth grew in front of me. First time you went school in front of me. Your whole life was in front of me. So listen to me and come back. Because the world outside is not as good as you think. You are the hero of this show whom the whole world watches." Truman listens to Christoph for a moment, then turns back with a smile and says, "I bid you good afternoon, good evening, and good night from now. Just in case I don't see you again." Then take exit from the gate. The audience is also very happy to see this. But Christoph and his team members become frustrated, because there is nothing left to show in their show. Seeing this, Sylvia is also become very happy and leaves her house to meet Truman. The story ends here. If you enjoy our video, please hit the like button and subscribe our channel.